Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm going to be testing Forza Horizon 4 demo on the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. I'll be doing 1080p, 900p, 720p, 1440p and 4K. To skip to of those sections of the video, check the timestamps down in the description. So first of all, I'll show you 1080p targeting 60 frames per second, which will be pretty much a mix between medium and high. After that, I tried to max out the game except in textures, and the game stays over 30 frames per second pretty much all the time. Then I do the same on 900p, 720p and 1440p. I try configuration to be around 50 to 60 frames per second. Then I just crank up the settings, trying to stay over 30 frames per second with the best visuals possible. Unfortunately, at 1440p, 60 frames per second was impossible without turning off shadows completely, which destroys the aesthetic of the game. But I lowered the settings anyways, in case you wanted to see how to get better frame rates. At 4K, to maintain 30 frames per second, I had to lower the settings to around low, some stuff on medium. I'll stay away from 4K since on other resolutions it looks significantly better graphically. You have to lower the settings drastically again to run it at 4K properly, but at least we have the option to do so. Then I show you the G4560 on 1080p maximum settings targeting 30 frames per second like on the i3 8100, and then I'll show you a 60 frames per second target on 720p, so you can see how this CPU handles the game at 30 and 60 frames per second. And so far it doesn't seem to be necessary to have a quad-core CPU to enjoy this game at 60 frames per second, but you'll notice on the 720p 60 footage that the G4560 sometimes limits the GPU when going over 70 frames per second. Since this is not the final game, I'll just stick to the benchmark tool. It's very close to what you see on actual gameplay, it's very brief so I can do many runs, and at the end of the footage you'll be able to see the average frame rate, the settings used, which I found very useful. Once the full game releases, I'll be doing a more in-depth video, so for now this is what I'm going to do. Benchmark tool, and so far in the options menu, to get better performance I had to lower many things in groups. We have a lot of options to choose, but again, in order to get a noticeable difference in performance you usually have to lower many things together. So first of all, the environment texture quality. If you have a 4 gigs of VRAM video card, use high. If you have 3 gigs, use medium or low, and if you have 2 gigs, just use low. There are other options that affect the VRAM, like the MSAA option and the world car level of detail, but here VRAM is very important, like on the previous Forza games. If you don't have enough, the will be significantly slower, and the options that I will lower together to get a good boost in performance are shadows, dynamic geometry quality, static geometry quality, SSAO, reflection quality, SSR quality, which is screen space reflections. World car level of detail is very important. I recommend you always try to lower that one if you want better performance. And then the shader quality also made a big difference. Lower those together first, and then you see how the frame rate goes. If that's not enough to get to your desired frame rate, lower them one option below once again, and then start lowering the options I didn't mention in groups. Another impact in performance is MSAA as usual. I recommend sticking to 2x MSAA at the very least because the game has only FXAA on top of it, so you can see a lot of aliasing on the cars, which can be noticeable, but if you don't care about that, just turn off MSAA and you'll be getting a performance boost. Other than that, you have all the descriptions for each of the options at the right of the menu. Again, I'll be talking more about this once the final game releases, so stay tuned for that. And on the system RAM usage, I saw around 7.5 GB of usage in the game itself. This is very important. Make sure that your RAM is on dual channel. Dual channel was crucial on previous games, at least on my end, so if possible have more than 8 gigs of RAM. The game in some rare occasions hit over 8 GB, but it was mostly around 7.5 GB in the worst case scenarios. If you want to download this demo, there's a link down in the description. It's Windows 10 only, unfortunately, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.